The news is live on Joy 99.7 in Accra, Love 99.5 in Kumasi, affiliates across Ghana's 16 regions, including Sun City Radio Keta, Volta Premier Ho, ATL FM Cape Coast, Radio Max Takrady, and Ridge 104.9 FM in Tamale. We are live on Twitter Spaces, Facebook live stream, and myjoyonline.com interactive app. The Midday News is sponsored by Petrosol, your clean fuel in full quantity. Petrosol, always a delightful experience. Coming up, bondholders warn domestic debt exchange program will be impeded if government fails to have a frank and open discussion as they prepare to hold crunch talks with the finance minister.
We hope there is going to be the proper stakeholder engagement. The way it is seen or perceived now, it's more like an imposition. The way it is going now, my biggest fear is that there will be some stalemate or logjam.
Even with the 2 weeks now that you have?
Well, if there's no proper engagement.
Meanwhile, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta rules out scrapping debt exchange program but promises to address concerns of individual bondholders. This afternoon, some traders at the KJTR market in Kumasi are locking up their shops over high electricity costs. We'll hear from them.
High bills that the management gives to the traders is making people close their shops. Many people are closing up their shops because they cannot continue to pay the high cost of electricity bills.
Also, advocacy group Center for Development Initiatives says new utility tariffs will worsen the plight of Lifeline users who are already struggling to pay bills.
See, what about the vulnerable, those who are on leave, those who are not even captured as part of the leave program?
Meanwhile, the Public Utilities and Regulatory Commission says it can't do much about the situation. Also in this package, members of the Public Accounts Committee in a showdown with the Director General of the Sports Authority over lack of progress in investigating some staff interdicted in the Lansah Remeana's expose on football corruption 4 years ago.
Those letters you say you've written to the police, can you give us a copy? That is what I indicated to the chairman, that I'll make them available because, sir, what did you think you were coming here to do? Didn't you know that you have been cited for these items? Then you come and sit here in presence of the committee, you tell us that you bring it later on. Did you think you were coming here for us to ask you how you were doing?
We'll tell you why 4 years on, the state of investigation is unknown and interdicted staff are without their full salary. Plus, the authorities' justification of the use of stadia for other events in sports.
The Ghana Football Association ramps up efforts to appoint a new Black Stars coach with 3 names shortlisted. We'll tell you who they are in 20 minutes.
Also in this package, Education Minister questions the relevance of some courses taught in the country's universities as he links it to the high unemployment rate among the youth in the country.
Development education. Development education for what? You have BA in education and you're supposed to prepare students for non-teaching job. What type of non-teaching job are you preparing students with? Unemployment invariably comes from the fact that we are training the graduates for courses that don't exist.
We'll bring you his solution as he speaks at the 74th Annual New Year School. Thanks for choosing us. This is Joy News, independent, fearless and credible. I'm Bernice, Abu-Baidoo, Lansah. The details now. This afternoon, key stakeholders in the bond space are set to meet government to hold crucial talks on the domestic debt exchange program. The ultimate goal is to convince government to back down on its decision to include their bonds in the program, whereas government hopes to get them to subscribe. The holders have in the last few weeks agitated and demanded exclusion, culminating in government's extension of the deadline for subscription. The Finance Ministry is set to begin another round of talks today. The Ghana Securities Industry Association says only an open engagement can ensure that a compromise is reached. Antonio Kisei is Vice President.
We hope there is going to be the proper stakeholder engagement.
You don't think you've had that proper stakeholder engagement?
You see,
in this proper definition.
You see, look, the way it is seen or perceived now, it's more like an imposition. So, in imposition, you go meet, you have audience, you talk, you leave, you have a further meeting, a memoranda is circulated, but let us sit down. And just like my brother here did, let's have a frank, open, transparent
conversation.
Dialogue. You understand? Let us show what the numbers are. Look, it shouldn't be that, the crime we've done is to have that open conversation so that we can all be on the same page. Let's jaw. Let's go. And I think that is what should happen within the 2 weeks. Let's take us to
Ascension,
yeah, down, wherever. Let's come to agreement. Those are that's the way I see it, the only viable way for us to come to some sort of consensus. The way it is going now, my biggest fear is that there will be some stalemate or logjam.
Even with the 2 weeks now that you have.
Well, if there's no proper engagement, that's what is going to happen.
You heard that Anthony Kisse, Vice President of the Ghana Securities Industry Association, speaking to Evans Mensah there. Well, the Ghana Insurers Association has been giving a sense of changes that can be made to the current structure to make bondholders open to signing up. Dr. Kingsley Kwabason is CEO.
So we raised the issue of the coupon rates as it is now.
As in the 0.5 and then average of 10 over the period.
Yeah, the form as it is now.
Okay.
For example, you look at a situation where you have different bonds with different maturities but same pricing. We think that we must have a second look at that. And also, if you look at the fact that per our arrangements, we've made some assumptions which underpinned our claims payment potential. If we have that system currently, it will largely affect our ability to pay. There were also proposals from the minister in terms of what we call the emergency liquidity assistance that will help us pay claims, and also the bit about the financial stabilization that will more or less deal with the issues of the capital. The only challenge is that we've not had the terms and conditions and clear directions as to how much in terms of the quantum, as well as the directions and the processes that will allow us to even assess that particular assistance.
Okay.
So there seems to be some difficulty in terms of getting the exactitude as to how we'll be able to use those facilities, assuming that there are challenges with liquidity. So it is upon those premises that we said that there must be broader conversation on the details.
Dr. Kingsley Kwabason is CEO of the Ghana Insurers Association. My colleague Joseph Akablay joins me in studio. Joseph, you have details of that meeting which is yet to happen.
It's actually taking place at 3:30 at the Finance Ministry. We understand that the bondholders are on their own having an initial meeting to try and firm up their position on this particular matter before they go into that meeting in the afternoon.
Interesting. But in an interview with Martin Kpebu yesterday on the AM show, he insisted that for them, they were not going to sign onto this debt exchange program in any way. Well, we wait to see what that position will be after today's meeting. Meanwhile, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta has insisted there's no alternative to the debt exchange. He's promising, however, to deal with some of the concerns the individual bondholders and pensioners have. He's been speaking in an exclusive interview on PM Express Business Edition with George Riafe, which will be aired tomorrow on Joy News at 9 p.m. And George Riafe joins me in studio. George, what more has the minister been telling you?
So you get from the interaction with him that indeed he appreciates the concerns that the individual bondholders have expressed, but there is a challenge also to do something with our debt and address all these concerns that has come up. So you get from him that there will be some concessions made, but the program is going to go ahead. Let's hear more from him.
I think what are we saying? We are saying that we have a situation where debt exchange is necessary. We have a situation where we have come out of certain formulations and we have gone ahead to discuss with the financial institutions a way to mitigate that. I think we've done that successfully. In the same way we sat with the union pensions, and I think we are making great progress in what we do for them. In the same way in which we are looking at individual bondholders to see how we can tweak this. Would we lose a bit of what we have? I think all of us are going to, but we have to make sure that what we eventually come up with creates a sustainability. For example, a zero coupon for 2023. That has to change. So we'll look at that. And those are the modifications which then recognizes the need for fixed income for certain classes of our citizens that we intend to do. So, George, once again, livelihoods must be protected as much as we can, and make sure that we also have a nation as a community that is also strong and robust for the future. So that's a balance that we have to do, and we'll do it successfully.
You heard the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta speaking exclusively to George Riafe for PM Express Business Edition, which will air tomorrow at 9 p.m. We've been joined by lawyer Martin Pibu. He is with the Individual Bondholders Forum. Good morning to you, Mr. Pibu. As of yesterday, you had insisted that this was a no-no for you and there was no point of compromise. Do you still stand by that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We are still standing by the no. So we are asking government, respectfully, to exempt individual bondholders from this program. As I've stated over and over, the program, that's a domestic debt exchange program, is proving to be a weapon of mass destruction. It's going to kill more citizens. It's going to destroy more businesses. It's going to destroy more schools. Livelihood, and so on and so forth.
Right.
So this is a weapon of mass destruction.
We just heard from the Finance Minister, who says that some concessions will be made. And he has admitted, though, that on both sides, you will lose something. So what are you going into this meeting with if it's a no-no for you?
We've already lost so much. Don't forget, 2022 was a year of cost of living crisis. Which cost of living crisis we are still facing? You see the prices that went up, very few have come down. So we are still in the cost of living crisis. So that's the price we are paying. That's the burden we are sharing. Don't forget, it's the finance minister who superintended over the reckless borrowing,
right,
which has made him very, very rich. He and the president, their family have become very, 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 very rich, while Ghanaians are suffering.
Sorry to interject.
That's the price we've already paid.
So why are you going for this meeting if you still stand by your position that you're not ready to subscribe?
Yes, we have to go there and repeat the argument. Maybe he will say he hasn't met us before. So let's go there and repeat. Yes.
Thank you for your time this afternoon. That's lawyer Martin Pibu with the Individual Bondholders Forum. Let's do some other stories now. And some traders at the KJT market in Kumasi are locking up their shops over high electricity costs. Individual shop owners currently pay between 500 and 1,500 cedis monthly as cost of electricity following last year's increase in utility tariffs. The PURC on Monday announced another increment in water tariff by 8% and electricity by 29%, and that is expected to take effect from the 1st of February this year. Chairman of the Federation of Kumasi Traders, Nana Akwesi Prempe, says the recently announced tariff adjustment will deepen their woes.
On average, pensioners lost 31% of their purchasing power in 2022, and clearly the increment of 25% in pensions did not commensurate with the purchasing power lost. Hence, the 25% overall increment was inadequate. So if we are talking about pensioners losing 31.5% of their purchasing power in 2022, then we have an increment of 25%. You realize that we would have expected something much more close to the 31.5%, but we did not get that, of course. So once 25% is falling short of 31.5%, those are bases to simply conclude that the increment was inadequate.
Apologies, you had the executive director of the Center, Africa Center for Retirement Research, talking about the retirement packages we have in this country. But let's now hear from Chairman of the Federation of Kumasi Traders, Nana Akwesi Prempe, who is saying the recently announced tariff adjustments will deepen the woes of traders.
The high drugs that the management give to the traders is making people close their shops. Many people are closing up their shop because they cannot continue to pay the high cost of electricity bills. Whereas when the person, he or she is having an individual meter, she can manage the credit he or she buys per month. But here's the case, of the 7,203 shops, we are all hooked to 1 meter. The canteen areas and other places. Some are paying as much as 2,500 cedis a month, some are paying 1,700 cedis a month, some are paying 1,200 cedis a month. So if the person makes all the calculations and realizes that she is running at a loss, then she goes back and close up her shop.
Nana Kwesi Prempeh is chairman of the Federation of Kumasi Traders. In Accra, a section of the public say the timing of the increment is wrong as they're already struggling to cope with the worsening economic conditions.
I was very, very surprised about the increment because they have increased the price about last year, October, from September to October. And within January, ending of January, they say they have increased it to start paying in early February. I particular, when I heard the news, I was very, very surprised. Within the shortest possible time, before I return from work, they say your credit have finished. So we who are doing our personal business or doing our personal work, we don't know where we are in the country now. We don't know our in or out of the country.
It's time now, what these people have created now, it's a mess. I don't see any improvement. What is that kind of writer doing? Well, I mean, is he an angel? Excuse my language, where is Baobiantu? When the fundamentals of the economy is weak, the dollar will expose you. Look at the increment of the fuel now per liter. It's equivalent to $1 now, 13 CD plus.
You heard some persons in Accra speaking on the increment in utility tariffs. Well, advocacy group Center for Development Initiative is unhappy with the decision by the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, PURC, to adjust the tariffs upwards. They believe the new tariffs will price Lifeline users out, and for those who manage to pay, it will leave them worse off. Lifeline consumers are expected to pay 13 pesos more per kilowatt hour. Executive member of the center, Alexis Derry, says Lifeline consumers should have been protected.
I am not too sure to what extent the vulnerable, and when I say the vulnerable, I'm talking about people who have already been registered, have been identified and classified under the Ghana National Household Registry. So it is like we already have a very, very, very effective and vibrant database in place. So I'm just curious to find out whether their concerns, their livelihood opportunities, and their reliable source of income have always been taken into consideration in this tariff adjustment.
Alexis Derry is executive member of the Center for Development Initiatives. Meanwhile, the PURC says the tariffs were increased to sustain the activities of utility providers. Its Director Regional Operations, Alhaji Jabaru Abukari, says the tariffs will only be reduced if inflation and the dollar slows down. Let's do some other stories now. Some staff of the National Sports Authority interdicted for their various roles in football corruption captured by investigative journalist Anas Arimeyaw Anas in the number 12 expose have been living without full salary 4 years after being forced to stay away. 4 staff members, including the former Director General Robert Safo Mensah, Ashanti Regional Director Joshua Mensah, the Public Relations Officer Frederica Davis, and Protocol Officer, were interdicted for allegedly accepting bribes in 2018. 4 years on, the police CID is yet to make the investigations into the matter known, leaving the interdicted staff in limbo. The story, however, took a different turn at the Public Accounts Committee hearing when the current Director General, Professor Peter Chumesi, failed to provide some documents requested by members.
Investigators, some of them were exonerated, others were found culpable. This particular individual was part of them, those to be investigated. And to date, we haven't received a report on him from the investigation. We've done a number of follow-ups at the police service, who also confirmed to us that indeed they are investigating the officer, but then it was commissioned, the investigation was commissioned by the presidency, so they will submit their report there, which we did a number of writings through our sector ministry to the presidency for the report to be issued, so that we will know whether the person is found guilty for us to be acted on it or is to be reinstated. Till date, we haven't received such a finality, and it has been a challenge for us indeed, officer who is his.
On your own. So what you're telling me is that even beyond this period, he's being paid. Where are we?
So on interdiction, he gets 50% of his salary.
I think you're shirking your responsibility. In fact, I am of the opinion that you have the right to make a determination regardless of what the presidency might come up with. And I really think that after 2 years, you're not being fair to this gentleman, especially if he's innocent.
In fact, a number of times we have written.
When was the last time?
last year, but I can't confirm the actual date.
To them?
Yes.
To the police?
Yes, we have a number of...
Do you have a copy of that letter?
Chairman, we will furnish you with some of these correspondence and the petitions that we gathered over this period.
Have you really written to the police? You knew you were coming to answer questions on this particular issue. Why didn't you bring the necessary correspondence? Because see, if it was you who have been on half salary for 3 years, I'm sure you would have taken some action.
Those letters you say you've written to the police, can you give us a copy? That is what I indicated to the chairman, that I'll make them available because, sir, what did you think you were coming here to do? Didn't you know that you have been cited for these items? Then you come and sit here in presence of the committee, you tell us that you bring it later on. Did you think you were coming here for us to ask you how you were doing?
You heard that the current Director General of the Sports Authority, Professor Peter Chumesi, answering questions before the Public Accounts Committee. My colleague Elton Bruby has some new information on this and joins me in the studio. Elton, what new information is coming in?
So what we are picking is that the 3 individuals took the matter to the National Labour Commission, and the National Sports Council was directed to pay half of their salary. But we are told that the half payment started just 6 months ago.
Elton Broby there. You're listening to the Midday News here on Joy 99.7 FM with me, Bernice, Abu-Baidoo, Lansah. Still to come, Education Minister questions the relevance of some courses taught by the country's universities, linking it to the high unemployment rate among young people.
Development education. Development education for what? You have BA in education, and you're supposed to prepare students for non-teaching jobs. What type of non-teaching job are you preparing students with? Unemployment invariably comes from the fact that we are training the graduates for courses that don't exist.
This is Joy 99.7 FM. You're listening to the Midday News with me, Bernice, Abu-Baidoo, Lansah. It's now time for sports with Mubarak Haruna.
Yes, Bernice, it's about the Black Stars because the Ghana Football Association has ramped up efforts to appoint a new coach to lead the senior national team. The role has been vacant since Otuado, the coach who led Ghana to the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, stepped down from the hot seat on December 2nd. It is understood Chris Houghton, the man who served as the technical advisor for Ghana at the World Cup, has been shortlisted alongside current Manchester United assistant coach Steve McLaren and Argentine trainer Hector Cooper. With less than 2 months remaining for Ghana to face Angola in the Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers, Sports Minister Mustafa Yusuf says an appointment is imminent.
The FA, which is the agency or the organization in charge of making sure that they hire a coach, is in the process. And I personally have engaged them. As at last week, the indication was that they will bring the final report to the ministry, possibly this week or next week. We need to have a replacement of head coach in place so that he can start preparing in earnest to get our team in place for the AFCON qualifiers, which is going to take place in March. Indeed, the country should be assured that the FA is working to ensure that we get a replacement.
Sports Minister Mustafa Yusuf. Back to you, Bernice.
Thank you, Arina. Now, Education Minister Dr. Yahweh Duchum is questioning the relevance of some courses run by the country's universities. He's linking the development to the huge number of unemployed graduates in the country. On average, Ghana produces over 300,000 graduates hoping to enter the job market, but few get employed. Speaking on education at the 74th Annual New Year School, Dr. Duchum said government is collaborating with universities to correct the imbalance.
So many students have been enrolled in diploma in education. They are being trained for jobs that do not exist. Thousands and thousands are graduating for jobs that do not exist. One favorite course that I always cite is what is called sanitation education, but there's no course in sanitation to be taught. Development education. Development education for what? UDS. Development studies. Undergraduate program. For what job? So yes, I'm fully aware, and we're engaging the universities. I think we need to focus on courses that have relevance to that particular student and to the nation. Invariably, you have BA in education and this university. And it's supposed to prepare students for non-teaching jobs. What type of non-teaching job are you preparing students with BA in education? They don't exist. but the degree program exists. Unfortunately, there's limited guidance and counseling at our schools, at the high school level, for a student to be able to say, I applied to do business administration, you gave me sociology, and I'm not going to take it, because that is not where I'm heading. But invariably, the young men just want to come to the university. We need to change course, because unemployment invariably comes from the fact that we are training the graduates for courses that don't exist.
Education Minister Dr. Yahweh Duchum there speaking at the 74th Annual New Year School. Now, presidential hopeful of the opposition NDC, Kojo Bonsu, says a vote for former President Mahama in the upcoming Congress of the party will limit their programs and plans. According to him, the former president, if elected, will have only a 4-year mandate due to the constitutional imperative, and that will give him limited time to fully implement his programs. Speaking on Joy Prime, Mr. Bonsu called on the party to look beyond the former president in the upcoming Congress.
Between his former president and I. No. In 4 years, you need a visionary leader who can complete 8 years. Because with 4 years, time is short. 4 years, time is very short. By the time you even make your cabinet and everything, 2 years is gone. So you would better have somebody who has an 8-year term, who can do a new phase, who can do an 8-year term. But I can assure you, he was very fantastic. He did well. He did a lot of good projects for Ghana. And Ghana did so well. So it is because of democracy. That is why we're in that competition. But it's not like we're challenging, no. It is not acrimonious. It is not disrespecting one. He has been the former president of this country, so I have to accord him all the respect. And he's a fine gentleman. But it's democracy that we have to compete for leadership of the party. Right. That is why this is happening. Mind you, he has been a former president before. I give him that respect. And if you want to become a president and you don't respect a former president, then you have no business of going for the position.
Kojo Bonsu is presidential hopeful of the NDC. He was speaking on Joy Prime. Well, let's go live now to the NDC's headquarters, where the party just held a news conference announcing dates to hold its National Delegates Congress to elect presidential candidate and parliamentary candidates for the 2024 elections. My colleague James Aveji joins us live. James, quickly update us on the date for the Congress.
Okay, thank you, Bernice. So, as we are learning now, as announced from the secretary of the party, Fifi Abikwete, the parliamentary primaries of the National Democratic Congress is coming up on the 13th of May 2023. Now, all interested persons are required, or who would be interested in the elections are required to pick forms online and make a non-refundable fee of 5,000 Ghana cedis to the party to pick forms for the parliamentary primaries election. The date for the presidential election are not yet announced, but as we speak, the parliamentary primaries will happen on the 13th of May 2023.
That's my colleague James Aveji coming to us live from the NDC's headquarters, and that's how we end this edition of the Midday News here on Joy 99.7 FM with me, Bernice, Abu-Baidoo, Lansah. Before I go, just a reminder of our top stories. Bondholders warn domestic debt exchange program will be impeded if government fails to have a frank and open discussion as they prepare to hold grant talks with the finance minister later at 3:30 p.m. today. We will be keeping our eyes on that and feed you with all the information. You can log on to myjoyonline.com for more news. And up next is Living Word with Pastor Mensa Otabil.